Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the For the CREST podcast. I'm going to apologize in advance. This is a little bit heavier. This is episode 2, Emergency with the Yanks. All right. First up, let's just start where it happened last night. It's been about 24 hours, a little over 24 hours. So we sat on it for a while and kind of relaxed, or at least tried to. So here's our 24-hour later thoughts. So let's start with what went wrong. The short answer is everything. Pretty much everything. So let's start at the top. The players.
It started, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, whenever the roster came out, with fairly poor player selection, especially a few places. For me, Venturo Alvarado would be an improvement both at center back and left back over who we had. Anthony Robinson, improvement at left back. Julian Green, improvement over Roldan, but then again, everyone is. And then the absolutely criminal is Dwayne Holmes. It makes no sense whatsoever. Somehow more worryingly than just him not being on the roster is that he's behind Sebastian Lletget, who apparently is also behind Christian Roldan, which I don't see how that's possible, and yet Lletget, I don't even know if he played at all in these two games.
I think he did against Cuba. Yeah, he came on against Cuba.
Not
Cuba.
Not bringing in Holmes. That just go ahead and resign there, Greg.
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of just to play devil's advocate for a minute. You can argue he's just coming back from injury or whatever, but the fact is he played full 90s for Derby. So he's obviously not injured anymore if they're playing him for a full 90 minutes. So, yes, I can kind of understand being sporadic with injured players and players just coming back from injury, but at what point are they not coming back from injury anymore? He was playing full 90s. There's no excuse.
But DeAndre Edlin has less playing time than Dwayne Holmes, and he was there, so.
And started.
Yeah.
The next, I guess, thing we have to talk about, the tactics. I'm sorry, what the hell were you thinking, Greg? Are you opposed to making an adjustment? Yeah, I don't, what are we doing? Why was Weston McKennie defending next to Josh Sargent?
I really...
Why was Sargent back with the center backs? What?
Yeah.
The
whole entire defensive shape is... Well, first of all, a 4-4-2, which is how we defend, I think is fine. I have no issue with that. But the problem is that apparently Greg is hard set on the 10 moving up next to the striker when we defend, which, when that's Pulisic, that is good. That's what we need. But when Pulisic plays the wing, that puts Pulisic defending, which, yikes. And then that puts, in this case, Weston McKennie, who is playing the 10, which is a whole other problem, up playing basically as a second striker. So we take our one ball-winning midfielder we had on the field and took him out of the midfield. I have no idea why that happened. It beats me entirely.
It was, not gonna lie, I literally could not find Weston at times because I was not looking for him next to Josh. And then other times I would find Josh and I'd be like, why isn't Weston where you are? That would make sense. But no, Weston would be up where I would expect to find Josh. It was a dumpster fire. It made no sense, and it obviously did not work.
And talking about Sargent being so deep at times, that's the last player that should ever drop back. And there's no reason why against Canada we need to have all 11 behind the ball. So when you drop Sargent back, now you have no outlet at all. And Pulisic a couple times tried to be an outlet. It didn't work. Got dispossessed every single time. But you try to play the ball out, you'd play it to Pulisic, and then he'd have no outlet. And he would have nowhere to put the ball. And he would just lose it. So somehow we managed to be so vastly outnumbered by Canada that we couldn't even counterattack, which I don't know if Greg just never practiced counterattacking, which potentially is true, which is, again, very terrible. That's like day one, learn how to counterattack. At least you can do something. But we looked so just unorganized defensively, and especially in transition from defense to offense. It was useless.
Yeah, it was. We were more of a hindrance to ourselves in transition than we were a help, frankly. And part of it kind of goes back to with the midfield we had. We had Weston McKennie up as an attacking midfielder. He's our best ball winner. He's our most physical player. Why is he way up there? He needs to be the one in the thick of things. And then you have Michael Bradley back there, who's about as useless as a traffic cone in defense at this point. And Christian Roldan, who's about as useless as a traffic cone in everything. Like, he's more of a hindrance than a help. And poor Weston was out there trying to man a whole midfield by himself, and obviously that didn't work. I mean, like, Weston he's a young player for sure, and he makes a lot of mistakes, and a lot of young mistakes, but the mistakes he was making against Canada weren't because he was being outplayed per se, or outmatched in terms of talent, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It was just because he didn't seem like he knew what he was supposed to do, or where he was supposed to be, or where to find his teammates, or like he just looked all out of sorts. And at the end of the day, when you have a player of his caliber and you can see what he does week in and week out with Schalke in the Bundesliga, that's a manager problem. Like, that's a system problem, that's a manager problem. It's not a Weston problem. Weston's better than that. And the same thing with Pulisic. Like, we know he can tear up a wing and fly down it on a counterattack. We've seen him do it countless times. So the fact that he can't is a managerial problem. Like, this isn't Pulisic's all of a sudden not able to dribble. This is Pulisic is trying to do the job of 4 other players all on his own. And it's not going to have a good outcome. And it didn't. He got depossessed time and time again. And some of it's on him for trying to take on too many players and dribble and not passing and not necessarily having the vision. But sometimes it was also like, where is he supposed to play the ball? Is he supposed to whip it into the middle of the field and turn it out? Like, there was no one there. Everyone was still way behind the ball. So, like, what's he going to do? Pass it back to the person who passed it to him? Like, there was no option. And that's a system and managerial problem. Either that, the team just decided they didn't know where they were supposed to be or something. Like, it was bad. It looked like a youth team. Like, a youth team that just doesn't know how to play the game and is so busy worrying about where they're supposed to be and how they're supposed to pass and things like that. They forget how the basics of the game.
Yeah, that's the thing with Greg, that he is forgetting the fundamentals, looking for this fancy and appealing brand of football, and it's just not working at all. And certainly it takes time, but at some point results have to be more important. And in competitive matches like last night, that's when results matter more. And he didn't get anything close to a result. So, and something that specifically irritated me almost more than Weston, just behind Weston being a striker in defense, is how we never pressed Canada's defenders or goalkeeper in defense. their goalkeeper and their defenders are not good with the ball. They don't like having the ball, and they're liabilities. And we just laid off of them and let them kick it around side to side, and that was a massive missed opportunity. Certainly, high pressing with the likes of Alphonso Davies and Jonathan David and their pace is a risk, but you have a far better chance of getting a turnover off those center backs and scoring yourself than they do of picking out a 40-yard pass into space for one of those two to run onto and then scoring on us. So I just don't get how you do that as a manager at this level. It's like Greg went into Cuba knowing that they sit low and compact, but their flanks are wide open. He knew that. He made a game plan specifically for that, and it worked. And yet there's a fundamental flaw, again, with Canada, and he doesn't exploit it at all. And
Yeah.
I don't understand how you can go from exploiting a team's biggest weakness and then a few days later completely missing it.
Yeah, and also like with that, why was Pulisic nowhere near the box? Like he never cut in. He was never up there within scoring range aside from that one shot, which I love Christian Pulisic to death. He has to do better there.
Yeah, he has to that one.
He has to put that one away. Like there's no excuse. I mean, we said the same thing about Sebastian Soto with one of his shots in the U20 World Cup, but you got to put that one away.
I'm still a little salty about that one.
It's like you have to put that one away. And I mean, at the end of the day, and it's hard to put a lot of the blame on him because like it's not like honestly like it's not his fault.
I mean, it comes back to again sort of the failure in Greg's just idea for the game, because throughout most of Greg's time, the fullbacks have pushed really high up and provided width in attack, allowing the wingers to get more in the box and into goal scoring area, which is where Pulisic needs to be for the national team. And in this particular game, again, probably because of Alphonso Davies and Jonathan David and their exceptional pace, he kept the fullbacks much deeper, which, again, I kind of get for Daniel Lovitz. He doesn't have pace, but DeAndre Yedlin, like, the one thing he does is go fast. So
it's about the only thing he does is go fast.
Allow him to use that one skill he has and let him push up the field, let him get involved in the attack, and trust that he and Aaron Long can cover Alphonso Davies, which isn't a great plan. But, I mean, I don't know why we started Tim Ream. I mean, one time, I can't remember what minute, it was pretty early on. I mean, it looked like a routine, just track back and clear the ball, and he got outpaced. He got outrun by, I think it was Alphonso Davies. And I kind of looked away for a second because I didn't think it was possible that he could get beat to the ball, and yet he did. And it wasn't even that close. And Alphonso Davies, if he puts in a slightly better ball, we concede really early on. So I think Tim Ream is too much of a liability at center back when we have players of that pace. And I actually like Tim Ream as a center back. I don't like him as a left back like he was the Gold Cup. But in this particular instance, I think we need a faster center back, or at least somebody who's a little bit better positionally, which I don't think we have than Tim Ream. He's very good positionally. He's very good with his head. Sometimes you need the physical traits. And Aaron Long does have the pace. And unfortunately, I can only think of two real players at center back that have that, and that's Chris Richards. But Greg has shown he's not going to call up someone that hasn't made a first-team debut, so it's going to be a while for Chris. And Miles Robinson, who maybe would have played, but he had that hamstring injury, had to pull out of camp. So maybe that's just unfortunate. So I'm not going to hound Greg too much on that one. But still, I just... not putting your fullbacks forward and not taking the risk to actually try to score a goal in an away game and in a game where you are by far the better team, if you can put pressure on Canada's weaker links, which is their back line, then that's how you win. But instead, we allowed Canada to play their strength, and
which is also our
they
weakness.
took advantage, and obviously, and they dominated the entire game.
Yeah. I said before the Canada match on Twitter that I was worried about it because if we make a mistake, Canada will capitalize on it, and that's exactly what they did. I mean, we rolled out a mistake.
The sad truth is we made about 5 more mistakes, and they didn't capitalize on those ones.
And I mean, frankly, we made a huge mistake from the minute the roster came out, and then it just spiraled out from there right to before we were making mistakes in this match before we even kicked off. I mean, like, it's hard to come up with excuses or even logic for why this went so terribly wrong. I mean, it's hard. And then so we get into this now, and we've committed to this system, so we're not doing well. And like all of this stuff is going so terribly wrong. So what does Greg do? He subs off Christian Pulisic in the 60th minute. What the actual fuck, Greg? What the hell were you thinking? I don't care how bad of a day he's having. When we are not winning a match, you do not pull off Christian Pulisic.
Yeah, he's hurt. Now, I think we should take a few minutes and talk a little bit about. We've done quite a bit of this, but specifically some of the things about Greg Berhalter and some of the things that he hasn't done well. Now, full disclosure, before we get into this is a lot of like tactical stuff. Neither one of us are by any means tacticians. We're going to be very open about that and admit that. Maybe Greg should try it.
It's okay to not be that great at something, Greg. Just admit you're not that great at something.
Maybe get a book or two. I don't know.
Maybe borrow Frank Lampard's Intro to Football Management Volume 2. It might not help you too much, but it might be a little bit. Thanks for that, BR Football. Loved it.
Maybe, I don't know, call up Pep Guardiola? I mean, you were
No, don't call up Pep Guardiola.
as the American Pep, so maybe you should actually figure out what Pep does.
But, I love Pep, but please don't. We don't have the pool to play like Pep.
But anyway, enough of the off-topic stuff. So we already touched on some of his poor player evaluations. But I've actually talked about this on Twitter, and I don't see in any way how Christian Roldan is even in a conversation for this national team, let alone starting in a competitive match. And I'm not even going to go necessarily into the U20s or the youth players, the younger guys who have really high ceilings, because, again, the whole Greg doesn't want to call up players before they make their senior debut. So I'm going to just go ahead and say, fine, Greg, you can have that idea. I don't agree with it, but I'll just let him have that idea. So who are some other players that maybe could replace Roldan? And one of them is on the roster, and we already talked about him, is Sebastian Lletget. And the other really notable one, again, we talked about him already, is Dwayne Holmes. Now, between the two of them, they're both more of a 10, in my opinion. Definitely Dwayne Holmes is a 10, which is really convenient because it'll push McKennie back to the 8-10 role rather than the 10 role.
Which is where he's actually good, by the way. Just disclaimer.
But the other one, and again, we've kind of touched on these, is Daniel Lovitz. I honestly, again, I don't understand how he's even anywhere near the pool. I mean, he's like Will Trapp in terms of talent, but at least Will Trapp has a familiarity with Greg Berhalter and the system and all that.
They can make a little bit of an argument for why he's on the roster. Not a
But
good one or a strong one, but you can make at least an attempt at an argument.
But Lovitz, I mean, he's older, right? I mean, Roldan, I think, is like 23 or 24, but Lovitz is a fairly old player. He's plays for a fairly poor MLS team, like Will Trapp does, and he's not like a star on the team. He's just an average to poor rated left back in MLS. So I don't understand how you call him up over Anthony Robinson or Ventura Alvarado.
Or literally any other left back in the pool.
Yeah.
I mean, hell,
come on. I would probably take Hollingshed over Lovitz, and I don't even like him. But, I mean, at least he does get forward well for FC Dallas, but I don't like him either. Better than Lovitz.
I mean, frankly, at some point, Greg has to realize that some of these players just simply aren't national team. They're not international players. They're just not. And it's not anything it doesn't need to be a big deal. It's just, that's the truth. It's not every player is going to play for their national team. And it's okay. That's not the end of the world. I mean, yeah, it sucks for those players, but I mean, for the case of some of these guys, they could have pushed themselves more. They could have, when they were younger, they could have tried going to Europe. They could have done any number of things.
Definitely Jordan Morris.
Yeah,
he could have been good if he went to Europe.
Any number of these things these players could have done to put themselves in a better position, and instead they stagnated, and now they're not good enough to be on the senior team. They're not good enough to play international caliber football, and that's just the harsh reality of it. And I don't know why we keep calling them up. They're just not good enough. It's
at some point we have to just take a fact and say, okay, Roldan and Lovitz, Corey Baird, who didn't even play, but these guys, we have to at some point realize, which I think pretty much all of the fan bases realize this, and I think to some capacity Greg has realized with Corey Baird that he's not international caliber.
And maybe even Will Trapp at this point.
But at some point you have to say it's pointless giving these guys time in camp when they're clearly not good enough, instead of giving it to one of our very, very promising younger guys. And again, you could make a solid argument about requiring senior team minutes, at least in appearance, before playing for the national team. And I'm not going to pound too much on the whole debate between that. But what I would say is, at some point, when you're losing, and when fans are starting to just not care, you have to do something to sort of grab the people's attention. And calling up someone like Richie Ledesma, or Yuli Yanez, or Sebastian Soto, or Alex Mendez, some of these
Chris
flashy guys who fill a need. And
Chris Richards. Sorry, I'm just throwing out names here.
Are players that a lot of us have at least followed for a little bit. I mean, if you watch the U20 World Cup, you watch them play. You watch them beat France, who I think that French U20 team could probably beat the current national team, even with Pulisic and McKennie on it.
By the way, it wasn't their back line is the most expensive team or something. It was it was insane. Their back line
is more valuable than our entire team.
Yeah, it was maybe, insane.
Maybe without Pulisic, I don't know.
Yeah, but yeah, it was if you didn't watch the U20 World Cup, you missed out on some beautiful football by some amazing kids that have incredible futures ahead of them. And frankly, at this point, they're the only hope for our senior team.
But if you did miss the U20 World Cup, don't fear. You can watch the U17 World Cup. What's that, week? 2 weeks? Something like that. You get to watch Gio Reyna If you haven't heard of him, you'll hear about him very soon. He'll be playing for Dortmund's first team probably by the end of the season. Not going to say for sure. If you ask me personally, I would tell you that.
He was with this team, the senior team, for all of, I think, like all of preseason. Yeah. And they were in the States, and he played when they were in the States. There was a lot of rumors about like whether or not that was like a publicity thing or whatnot. But even when they went back, he did play a lot,
and he played once they went back to what was it, Switzerland?
Yeah, they went back to Europe, and he was still with the senior team, and he was still playing with the senior team. So
and he's trained quite a few times.
Yeah, he trains regularly with the senior team as well. And he scores like crazy for their U19s.
I think he scored twice. But he does assist like crazy. He's not quite Yuli level of score like crazy.
Watch Yuli for Wolfsburg.
Yeah, he plays Saturday. His father did say he's recovered from his foot ankle injury.
So he'll probably score a goal or two. So keep an eye out for that.
If you can find a marginally legal stream of that, watch that one. I don't remember where we were going with this, but anyway.
Call up the kids, basically.
Yeah. At some
Call
point,
up the kids, restore faith.
At some point, the public perception of the team has to improve, and it's not going to happen calling up Roldan and Lovitz and these guys. But you throw in even one of them, just for something for the fans to get excited about, it'll make a difference, and it's something that Greg needs to do.
Yeah. Just kind of.
Now a little bit back to some of the things that we were originally going to talk about a couple minutes ago with Greg's tactics and game plan. Something that has gone back to pretty much since he was hired is that he's very inflexible. He's very stiff with the way that the game is played.
Yeah, he has one idea and one idea only, and that's the only way we're playing, and anything else.
At times, I think he's hinted at. I don't know for sure if he's explicitly said it, but I think a decent amount of it, through the friendlies at least, like against Mexico in the 3-0 loss, he didn't change because he wants the team to have the experience of playing out of the back under high press. And failing, you learn by failing, and that's a fact, which is never a great look. Like, you don't want to do your experimentation and losing by large margins to your biggest rival, especially at home. But
I mean, when is a U.S.-Mexico match ever a home match for the U.S.? Just gonna put that out there, but
play one in Alaska.
That's on Twitter, by the way. So he had said, just to catch everyone else up in the loop, he said play in Alaska and we'll have to fight snow. Was it snow drifts?
We'll maybe have 5 fans there, but they'll be U.S. fans. We'll finally have a home field advantage. We may have to deal with a little bit of snow. That's all. But when you play a competitive game, and we saw it against Curacao in the Gold Cup, and we saw it against Mexico the first time Greg has played against Mexico in the final, and then again yesterday with Canada, he doesn't change his approach at all throughout the game. Even when, against Curacao, we weren't losing, but we were getting outpossessed. And
we were outplayed the whole time.
We were outplayed basically from about minute 20 or so on. We were outclassed.
They took it took them like about 20 minutes or so.
We scored, and then we just kind of gave up.
Yeah.
So
they figured out what we were about, and they're like, oh, okay, we'll press them. That shuts them down. They can't do anything. And that's what Canada did. That's what Mexico has done twice.
And Canada did it. And I don't think it's going to change.
It's not.
I'm very interested to see this Cuba match. When Canada played Cuba, they, I think, won 6-0 the first time, and then only 1-0 the second time they played them in the, what's it called? Nations League?
Yeah, Nations
I can never remember the name of that tournament.
Yeah, it's the Nations League.
But I'm very curious to see how Cuba adjusts, and if they... I mean, Greg was very open and saying. It was, if you watch Behind the Crest, the U.S. soccer videos, he's very open about wanting to exploit Cuba's lack of width. So I'll be very curious to see if Cuba makes adjustments to their style of play, and I really hope they do, because I want to see Greg have to make a change. And honestly, I'm not confident he'll be able to do it. And if we get an embarrassing result against Cuba, yeah, I have no idea how Greg's going to survive that one other than hide behind his brother.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that's how he's surviving this one, I think, is he's just...
But just to sort of be specific on what it is that these teams are doing, there's two fairly simple ways of sort of keeping the U.S. at bay. And what Curacao did, and what Canada and Mexico have done, is they've pressed high, but specifically they have pressed the 6, so in this case, Michael Bradley. And by doing so, Michael Bradley is basically only good at one thing at this point in his career, and that is passing. But he's only good at passing when he has time. So when you take away the element of time and you make him pass quickly, he has one direction, and it's backwards. And when you pass backwards, either to the center back or the goalkeeper, now you have 3, 4, 5 players rushing forward. So you're left with play it to a center back who's under pressure, or just clear it. And again, when you have Weston McKennie kind of playing out of position, you have no ball winner in midfield. So when you play it over the top, unless you can find Sargent, which again, for some reason, Sargent and McKennie were just nowhere to be found. And I don't know if that was a Greg thing. I don't know if they just weren't on the same page with where they were supposed to be. Again, not a tactician. I don't have a personal relationship with Greg, so I can't ask him. So, but it's not good enough. When you can't play out of the back, you have to find a way to get the ball to your striker at his feet and hold up the ball, and then find an outlet pass to one of your wingers. And Josh is very good at that.
He's amazing. And
Pulisic is really good at making the runs off of that and receiving the ball, but we could not get the ball to them. And we were just so outclassed in midfield that we couldn't pass out of the back. We couldn't pass long because we would lose every single 50-50 ball. And part of that is positioning, and part of that's player selection, and part of it just comes down to desire and heart. When it comes to a 50-50 ball, who wants it more is who wins it. And we didn't want it more.
Yeah, and I mean, some of it, and some of this, like, this absolute lack of motivation and lack of energy, like, I honestly, it looked like no one on that pitch wanted to be there. The most emotion and heart I saw was Pulisic crying after being subbed off.
Not the emotion you want.
And no, you do not. That's not what you want to see in a match. Like, you don't want to see your star player in tears because he's frustrated, upset, and probably his confidence is probably wrecked and ripped to shreds after this. Like, Greg, what are you doing? Like, your job is to get them ready to play. And part of that is getting them ready to play, to be, and, like, actually getting them ready to, like, want to be on the pitch. And, like, this is an important match. This is a competitive match. You have to be out, like, you have to want to be there. And part of his job is to get them hyped up and ready to play. Obviously, that did not happen. And he had a perfect, like, at halftime, he had the perfect chance to do that. It was 0-0. Yeah, we made it to half 0-0. At halftime, he could have gone in there. He could have gotten them energized, said, look, this is what we need to do. We need to forget what we were doing. We need to change to this. We need to get up there. You need to, like, get them energized. Like,
he needed the Jesse Marsh.
Just show them the Jesse Marsh video. Like,
yeah, literally, just put that on. Just play that video. He doesn't even have to say anything, and that would have been better than, like, whatever it is he did, because it didn't work.
Yeah, there was no change whatsoever. If anything, it got worse, and it definitely got worse when Pulisic was subbed off. And what little spark and hope was on that team, it was gone. And I don't know if part of it's because we conceded, 3 minutes after we took him off, which I don't think is a coincidence, by the way.
Yeah, it is poor defending. Thank you, Yedlin.
Yeah.
His patented fall asleep at the far post.
Yeah. I mean, it's like whatever little bit of spark there was at all was gone the minute we pulled Christian off. And I don't know if it was they got tired. I don't know. It's very weird and very concerning to me that it happened immediately after we pulled CP off. That's just it just is, and I don't know. I don't know what to think about it, in all honesty. But the other thing that that was atrocious with this match, we lost 2-0. We were outplayed for 90 minutes by Canada. Which, FYI, they're not even in the Hex at the moment. So if we cannot beat a team that is not even qualified for the Hex, how are we supposed to beat teams that are in the Hex?
Yeah, and then be good enough in the Hex to then make it to the World Cup.
Yeah. I don't want to go there yet, but it's hard not to start.
Yeah.
It's hard not to. But his press conference after this match was unbelievable. I have never wanted to shake a person and yell in their face that they don't know what you're doing or what you're saying so much as when I watch the videos of his press conference. This man, he said every time he speaks to the press, to be honest, this wasn't just last night. Every time he speaks to the press, he always gives the exact wrong answer.
And right after the game, they interviewed him on the field, and he had an opportunity to say something along the lines of, this was really bad, and, I came in with the wrong game plan, and to say, I made a mistake, and I'm not too big to admit it. But instead, he just, I don't even remember what he said. What did he say?
He said something about they didn't have enough desire.
Yeah. He goes on about, not being wanting it enough, and
he went off and ran about
energy
50-50
and things
balls
like
too.
that, and not winning 50-50 balls, which, I mean, if your entire game plan revolves around you winning all of the 50-50 balls, you need a new plan. That's one
bad
little
management.
Piece, one little piece of an entire match, and if that's the end all be all, you're going to have a lot of poor results. But in that moment, the fans needed something to make them feel better, and instead of doing something like that, he says something that's just going to make them even angrier. And he didn't stop there. We're both American Outlaws, which, that's the unofficial.
Yeah, the official
supporter group of all of the national teams. And it was an away game, so there weren't many fans, but there was a small section. And all the players went over and applauded the away support like you traditionally do, whether you're playing for a club or your country.
Whether you win or lose, draw, whatever. But
Greg didn't go. He did not go over to the fans. He didn't thank them for making the journey. I mean, this is a weeknight, right? I mean, people probably take off work, or they're driving at night. They pay for a hotel to go to this match and support you, and you let them down, and you don't even bother to go over and thank them. And it's just so it looks so bad when you're already not liked, and people are already saying, "Oh, you only got the job because of your brother." And then you don't even bother to thank fans for showing up to your match.
And arguably the most loyal and supportive fragment of the fan base there is. I love being an American Outlaw, and I love the
When the American Outlaws start to say that the team needs better than you, really messed up.
Yeah. because like as an organization, the Outlaws tend to just say we just go, we support our team,
Yeah,
win lose, we stay out of this mess.
Basically, blind support. Doesn't matter what's going on. We support you through everything, and ultimately, that is a very good thing.
I fully support it. Like I said this when we celebrate remember and act in remembrance of the Trinidad and Tobago disaster
that night.
It's what we've done through all of this is we show up, we support the team, and we love them through it.
We just and thin, and it's been a lot of thin.
We show up and we support, and that's what we do, and that's what we continue to do, because at the end of the day, these athletes, they're out there representing our country, and yes, they embarrassed our country last night, but I mean, what's the point? Like, we still have to be, they're still representing us, and we still need to go out there and support them, and especially in cases like this where it's not even necessarily it's not even their fault.
I wouldn't say it's not their fault,
like,
but it's not fully.
Yeah, it's like some of it. Yeah, but it's like it's not. They can't change their manager, and their manager has problems. Which kind of on this topic, does Greg even care? Like,
I really question it. Yeah.
I mean, like, if you ever watched any of his press conferences, he speaks in a monotone. He like never has any emotion. Like when we score a goal, he gets a little. Like, he'll smile or he'll clap or he'll
do a little fist pump.
Yeah, it's like but if you've ever watched like a Jurgen Klopp or a Pep Guardiola,
I mean, he's not there like practically ripping their shirt off or something.
Yeah, he's like, and it's like as a huge Man City supporter, like I love the fact that when we lose, our manager feels it just as much as we do. Like. And we're not having a great season. Like, let's just put it out there. We're not doing great. But I know when I look at him on the pitch, like, he's feeling the exact same thing that we're all feeling. And so, like, that feels good to me to know that, like, yes, the person in charge of my team isn't happy either. Like, yes, he's upset about this too. And I don't get that from Greg. I don't think he cares. And I think that's part of why the team doesn't seem like they care. Because how can you ask the team to care and have all this passion for playing when their manager doesn't even have it? Like, as a manager, you have to lead your team, and he's not doing that. And I don't know, like, how much influence does he even have over this locker room anymore? Like, do they look up to him? Do they respect him? Like, what are their thoughts? It would be hard if I was in their position. It would be hard to respect him, especially knowing what the fans are saying and knowing that our results aren't living up. And then you look, and you don't even have to look very hard for people to be like, this is not going well.
I mean, Berhalter out was trending last night on Twitter, so it's not a great sign. But the weird thing for me is that Greg Berhalter, the player, was an intense guy, and a fair number of people probably don't remember those days. I don't even know if I was alive. I wasn't a fan then. But Greg was an intense guy. He was passionate. And to see him have no passion as a manager is just weird to me. And he's just so calm and just kind of there, but he doesn't show any real desire. And a team kind of reflects their manager. And when their manager is just very low energy and lethargic and everything, that's how the team tends to be. That's why when you see a team like a Liverpool or a Manchester City, they have managers that get involved, they're high energy, they really push their teams, but they're there with them as they push them. And Greg hasn't been. And I really want to see him have some of that intensity, some of that passion. And he had an opportunity to have that last night and to say what I hope he was thinking. And that was a terrible performance. And to really kind of rip one at just everything, right? I mean, at himself, but he didn't. And at some point, you start to lose faith that he can ever take a team, especially a young team, and turn them into something great, because in order to do so, you have to have a team that gets excited about playing for you.
Jesse Marsh 2026.
Yes. And Greg does not exactly have this type of just mentality and personality that makes me, as an outsider, and I'm not in meetings, I'm not there day to day, but what I have seen from videos and practice and everything, he doesn't seem like a fun guy to go play for. And when you're not a fun guy to go play for, people, especially young players, they're just they're there, and they may want to be there. They may like playing for the U.S., but it's seen more like, oh, yeah, I'm here, I'll play,
I go home.
but then I'm going to go home. Yeah, and there needs to be more intensity, there needs to be more energy, and it starts at the coach, right? But the coach doesn't have any, so I really don't know how you're going to get energy with Greg.
I don't know, like, I don't know. I don't know if it's possible. I don't know. And the other thing is, like, with this, you have all of your big stars and your best players flying literally over an ocean to come play for you on 6, 7, I think even possibly 8, depending on where we're at in the country, up to 8, 9 hour time differences to come play for this team for a week and a half. Like, you have to make them, like, have the passion. It has to be an enjoyable
experience, and it just doesn't seem to be one.
Yeah.
And certainly losing is going to make a lot of things, look bad. But, I mean, you watch them against even Cuba, and they just didn't look all that excited. And I get it. It's Cuba, and, oh, yeah, scoring 5, 6, 7 goals against Cuba, no big deal. But I would have liked to have seen, players excited about the fact that they scored 7 times.
Yeah, like, going back to being a Man City fan again. Man City versus Watford. Every single one of those goals they were happy about. I mean, like, we were living for it, and it was great, and it was fun, and or the women's national team versus Thailand, like,
got a lot of heat for that.
Yeah, but
I mean, I love to see that. I love to see a team that scored 13 times in one match and is excited about every single one of them. And especially when you play for a team that I think they're averaging like 1.6 goals a game or something like that. And when you consider some of the games the men's national team has had against like Trinidad and Tobago where they won 6-0, Cuba that was 7-0, what was it? Guyana that was 4-0. When you consider some of those games in there where we just kind of ran up the score for a little bit, when you average 1.6 goals, which is what Greg Berhalter's average is roughly per game, and you see those huge numbers, that means that there has to be a lot of games where you struggle to score. And the fact is, outside of those few, we've had low-scoring games. And Greg Berhalter was supposed to implement this attacking style that was fun. And it's neither attacking nor fun. And
yeah, this is the type of style that, like, would make Johan Cruyff roll over in his grave or something. Like, this is just so bad.
This is a team that does not have an attack, and they don't play this attacking style that we were told we were going to play. But they're not good defensively either. It's like they hold the ball with useless possession and then give it away easily and let the other team score. It's like Spain in the World Cup. It's like they have 75-80% of the ball sometimes, and they don't do anything with it. We have
Spain without Iniesta and Xavi.
But I mean, I don't understand what we're doing. Trying to put possession and put this style and basically style points ahead of actual points.
Yeah,
And
like I love. There's this video going around on Twitter of this comedic take on Berhalter versus Jesse Marsh, and one of the things comedic Jesse Marsh says to his players, hypothetically in during their Liverpool matches, they did not come here to play stylistically. Like, we came here to get a result, and then I kept thinking about that the entire time of this match. It was like, one, this wasn't even pretty, so there was no pretty style to even have. Like, so what? Why are we even still trying to play stylistically when we can't even play stylistically to begin with?
Yeah. Anyway, enough of the rant about stylistic play and everything.
Yeah.
I think we all get the point.
I think we've more than covered the point.
Yes. We should probably put in a watch this at 1.5 times speed. Many rants. It's getting late.
It's late, and this was a dumpster fire.
Yeah.
This was a dumpster fire of a dumpster fire.
Yeah. Just for reference, we were going to record this last night, and we decided to wait a day so this would be less reactionary, which I don't think has worked particularly well, but well.
So ultimately, we're left with the question:
where do we go?
Where do we go? What do we do? How do we get ourselves out of this mess?
Now, we're kind of gonna look at this in two ways. The big picture dream versus okay, the big picture dream's not gonna happen. I think we all know this. So realistically, what do we need to do? So let's first just start with the big dream, because why not?
Clean house, everybody out.
Yeah, let's just sack everyone.
Everybody.
Sack Ernie Stewart, sack Jay Berhalter, Greg Berhalter,
Carlos Cadero.
Just clean the entire slate. We can keep the youth coaches. I like those guys. Yeah. But
everyone,
in terms of having a CEO, president, those positions, I'm not really going to talk about who to take those. Quite frankly, I don't know.
No.
But for head coach, and I've seen some options come around Twitter. I personally think Tab Ramos.
I think that's kind of both of our agreements right now is put Tab Ramos in.
And while I don't think Tab is necessarily a great manager, and he does make mistakes, especially with lineups. In the U20 World Cup a couple months ago, right? I mean, in the first game he starts way at the number 9, puts Paxton Pomykal on the wing, and I think that was a huge mistake. I think we win that game against the eventual World Cup champions. We dominated that game, just couldn't finish. But I think if Weah's on the wing, Soto is at striker, and Paxton is in midfield where he's more comfortable, I think we win that game. So certainly to say he's a perfect manager would be wrong. He also did play Juliana's enough for Richie Ledesma, in my opinion, and I think his addiction to Chris Durkin was a little ridiculous. But
his addiction to Chris Durkin.
But I do think that in the current situation, which is where we have essentially an entire team that is U23 or younger, we need a manager that is good at helping not only get the most out of players, but also helping players to develop. Now, certainly being in a national team, that's not where you develop mostly. And Greg Berhalter said that, and he got some heat for that. But I actually kind of agree with him. It's not his job necessarily to develop players in the week and a half he has time with them. But for Tab Ramos, most of the players that we're going to need to build this team around are players that he's coached, and he's coached very recently. Most of them just a couple months ago at the U20 World Cup. And then you throw in Tyler Adams and Weston McKennie, Christian Pulisic, Josh Sargent. Zach Steffen. That's about it.
Yeah, that's
One of our center backs, not sure which one. Got Chris Richards is one of them, and then you got some others.
I personally, and sometimes I get under heat of this, I like Matt Miazga. He's not the greatest player,
solid,
but he's a pretty solid player.
He's got the ego we need.
Yeah, exactly. He's got the ego. He's got the fight. He'll get in there. He's not. He has the heart and grit that made a lot of us fall in love with this national team, the men's national team, to begin with. And he's one of the few players I think we have right now that still has that.
He and Weston are the only ones that have intensity. And at times I think Weston, he loses his. I don't know necessarily if his passion is for the national team or if it's for like when people wrong him personally or his buddy / like national team wife.
Christian Pulisic and Weston McKennie are the Lionel Messi and Sergio Aguero of this U.S. men's national team. Just gonna put it out.
But at times I feel like his anger and his moments of, let's call it passion, say confrontation, is a lot of times less about his pride for his nation and more like defense of himself or his teammates, which, I mean, it's good to have that, but I would like to have a little bit more of the national team thing. Definitely doesn't have the Matt Miazga taunting Mexico's wonder kid. That will never die.
Long live Matt Miazga.
Now, the problem is, with the whole idea of sacking everyone, is that Greg has this insurance plan type thing built into his whole time with the national team. And it's not Jay Berhalter, his brother, being in charge of basically Greg and everything with the men's national team. It's the fact that he is trying to implement this complicated system we were talking about a couple minutes ago. And he's bought himself a ton of time because he can just keep saying, oh, you know, we're still working and we're still trying to develop this system.
We're making progress internally.
In progress. We're still progressing internally. And he can say all of these things, and he can't necessarily say no because we're not in the meetings. We're not in every practice, so we don't see firsthand that he's lying. We already know he is. But we can't have concrete evidence to prove it. And the big problem with that is we really don't have time to wait. I mean, World Cup qualifying starts in less than a year.
10 and a half months.
We have 10 and a half months. With our big prospects, hopefully for the Olympics, if we qualify. You'd imagine Pulisic, McKennie, Adams, and so on and so forth will go to that. So that's
I would imagine we would
time we won't have with the guys. So that's time in our system that apparently is so complicated and everything. We're not going to have to work on it. So
the other factor with that is say we do sack Greg. World Cup qualifying is 10 and a half months away, so whoever we bring in has to have time with the team, and basically, assuming, because obviously Berhalter wasn't sacked today, and a lot of us were kind of hoping for that, I think. Yeah, unrealistically, we all knew it was never going to happen, but a part of us was like, please. So I would say the absolute earliest they would sack him would be after November, which gives him
it would be
March. Which the next time our big players would be in camp would be March. So, one, that does give him a little bit of time to hire somebody. But
well, again, that comes back to the importance of hiring Tab Ramos, because a decent number of the players that in all likelihood, if we're being honest, and we really want to have our best potential and best, I would even say the best at this point team is going to have the Ledesmas, the Gloucesters, the Richards, Sotos, Mendez, Weah, Yuli, Paxton players on it. The U20 team, they will have to be on that roster if we're truly going to say we're going to bring our best team. So they already know about Tab. They've played under Tab for a couple of years building toward the U20 World Cup. So that will be another reason to hire Tab, because it'll be a nice smooth transition. And rather than having to teach a new system to absolutely everybody, you say, okay, maybe someone like Christian Pulisic and Weston McKennie, they haven't been there for a while. Tyler Adams hasn't been there for a while. Josh Sargent did play some with the U20s under Tab Ramos, so he has not too distant experience. But I think everybody has played under Tab Ramos outside of like if by some miracle Josie Altidore and John Brooks are healthy and they're involved. I don't think they've ever played under Tab, so that would be the exception. But it's the best case scenario.
Yeah. And that's a lot of that. A lot of Tab too is it's practical. Like we don't have time to mess around.
And he's a very no nonsense coach.
Yeah.
He's not going to waste time trying to implement something all fancy. He's just going to implement something that will get results now.
Yeah, which the hex starts in less than a year, and we have to be ready.
I mean, we're gonna make the hex. That's not a concern. We're not gonna drop that far in FIFA rankings, but we need to do a lot of work if we truly want to expect to make the World Cup, because we have not progressed at all, in my opinion, from where we were 2 years ago.
No, we haven't. It's an objective fact at this point. Like,
and the fact is, the others have. Canada has improved. Mexico has improved. So we're going to be going up against teams that have improved, and we have not. So the gap is bigger.
I mean, and if anything, there are definitely arguments for us being worse off now than we were then.
You could argue that.
You can definitely make that argument. I'm not going to do it right now. I don't want to depress myself like that, because I'm going to move into the next topic that depresses me probably the most out of all of this, and it's Christian Pulisic. This poor kid has been through hell and back with this team, and we just keep digging him into a deeper and deeper hole. And it's, frankly, I'll be honest, what hurt so much of this match for me wasn't losing 2-0 to Canada. It wasn't losing away. It wasn't Greg Berhalter being an idiot. It was seeing Christian Pulisic cry in a U.S. jersey again. Again. We have said time and time again that we can't let this happen. We have to, support him. We have to do, all of this stuff. And we fail him time and time and time and time again. And I don't even know what to say a lot of times. It's completely unacceptable. And I was Greg, you wrecked the confidence of our, the one player on that pitch that could probably, if any of them could, the one player that could change that game, you just wrecked his confidence and made him cry. Nice going, Greg. I don't know. It's so bad. I feel like Greg's trying to shove Christian into this hole that is not Christian Pulisic shaped. He's trying to make him do things he can't do. He's not.
Yeah, Greg is so set on having this system and he's so set on trying to shape players to fit his system instead of shaping his system to fit the players. And I don't know. It was said that Pulisic has flu-like symptoms. I don't necessarily
being around Greg
believe
Berhalter will give anyone flu-like symptoms.
But I think part of the thing that bothers me most is that I tend to believe that Pulisic being pulled was less about his flu-like symptoms, air quotes, and more about Greg trying to make a point. Maybe not specifically to Pulisic, but to the whole team that, nobody, can kind of get by not being really, really good in a game or something. And so he brought out the guy that, for most people, he's considered untouchable, right, when it comes to the national team. He's going to be here no matter what. It doesn't matter if he's playing or not with his club. He has to be on the national team because he is the best player. So I think, in a way, Greg is trying to make an example out of Pulisic and saying, even this, untouchable player that is, their only hope is
Captain America.
Yeah. He can get pulled from this game too, even though we're not winning, even though we need a goal. I will even pull him and I think he's trying to make a point. Maybe he's trying to win back the locker room if he did start to notice something along the lines of losing it and making a point and saying, you will respect me because you will fear me rather than you will respect me because I'm good at my job type of situation.
I think he went full Jose Mourinho on Christian Pulisic.
And I just don't see that working at all for him because, I mean, it's really hard to justify, pulling out Christian Pulisic when Christian Roldan is on the field. I mean, Roldan was a walking disaster. And yet he goes and continues to play. And he has a match. I think the MLS is back this weekend, right?
Something like that.
But, I mean, he has a match coming up. A playoff game. A must-win game that he will be a major key to for Seattle. And he's going to go out and play 90 minutes. Meanwhile, Christian Pulisic, who's probably going to go back and sit on a bench for Chelsea, doesn't play the full game in a game that we needed goals in. And it's like, to me, in that situation, you should sub off Roldan and bring on Areola. I'm not a huge Areola fan, but in this situation, I think he was the best option. Bring him on, move Christian to the 10 role. But instead, he tries to do this whole make a point thing, and I really...
If anything, I think it backfired on him. Because, and I said this...
never helps when you sub off your best player and then lose 2-0.
Yeah. I said this earlier too, but to me, like, it looked like when he pulled him off, what little fire was in this team was gone.
And I have not seen Christian that mad as I did after the game in a little exchange with Greg, which was very short. But I'm not the best lip reader, but it appears to say that Christian says, "I'm fine." And I am assuming that that's referring to the
flu-like symptoms.
Flu-like symptoms, and not the I'm fine. I don't need your comfort type of fine. And then he says something else after that in a not very nice way that makes Greg Berhalter kind of run away a little bit. So I have no idea what he said. Didn't look nice, and it evidently made Greg Berhalter a little nervous.
Yeah. No, it was, and honestly, part of Pulisic's poor performances for this national team aren't on him. They're on the system. He needs to be 1v1 wide. He's not. He's 1v2, 1v3 wide. He needs to be getting in around the box. He's not. He's getting caught up he's getting stuck with 3-4 defenders around him. And so you can't blame him when he's not. If he can't do what he's good at, he's not going to be good. Like, it's just logic. And I do feel after watching this whole exchange, and Christian Pulisic is obviously a leader on the team.
Yeah, he is the leader.
Yeah, that is blatantly obvious. Whether or not he has the captain's armband, he's very much the leader of this team. And so I feel like there's going to be any change coming from, I think he has to say something. And
say or do something.
He has to do something.
And it doesn't have to be public. Right? No. Like, I would actually kind of prefer it not. Because I think if he comes out publicly and says something, that'll be a little unprofessional. I think he needs to have a meeting with Greg and really talk about, not only his own role, but like what Greg Berhalter, sees in some of the players he's calling out. Because I can't imagine Pulisic, a guy who plays at the highest of levels, appreciates having to play with someone like Roldan.
Or Lovitz.
These
or
guys
Bradley.
Who are at best average MLS players. I would say a little less about Bradley because he was really good.
So he was good, yes.
Just a little old now. So I can't imagine he's pleased about that. So, it would be nice to see if he has a little chat with Greg. Obviously, I don't think we'll ever hear about it. He may have had one. But also about his system and about what he wants from his players. Because for any manager for the U.S. for the next, whatever, 10, 12 years, their biggest job is going to be figuring out a way to get Pulisic into situations where he can go one-on-one and he can get into goal-scoring opportunities. And right now, Greg Berhalter is failing miserably at that.
It's not even that hard, really. Like,
well, I mean, you have to. I mean, good managers will scheme specifically to stop Pulisic, and then that's the situation where you need someone to step up and take over. Which Jordan Morris did a good job about doing that with against Cuba, but it's
Cuba.
Which Cuba. They would like double to triple mark Pulisic and then leave Jordan Morris just alone.
Or they would send like 2 defenders forward with Josh Sargent, and then Weston would come in and just slot it home with wide open.
But Cuba's not very good.
Cuba's a different story. Cuba's not even a glorified training exercise. Like, let's be real.
Yeah, I think even our center backs would be better. Even Omar Gonzalez. But
yeah, and the other thing that's worth pointing out about this whole Pulisic thing with this match specifically and pulling him out, what little fan support Greg still had, he lost the minute there were images of Pulisic crying.
He lost it before that. He lost it as soon as Pulisic's number went up.
Yeah. I mean, but like it was all like Christian Pulisic has been the head of this national team since he was 17. He's been our like hope for the future.
We keep letting him down.
And yeah, exactly. We keep letting him down, and it sucks. And I hate that we keep doing this to him. But when Greg made him cry and pulled him out of this match when we needed a goal, the fan support was gone. I mean, I jumped, like,
You left.
I literally was like, I'm not watching this anymore. Like, I'm done. I
find it very fascinating how I've been a fan for a while now, and I've never, since very recently, I've never been in a situation where I hope we don't score or I hope we don't get a result. But I found against Uruguay, I was kind of a little bit disappointed that we scored and were able to, quote unquote, salvage points. It was a friendly, so there were no points to salvage, but we were able to get a result because it gave something for Greg to sort of be like, oh, look, I got a result against Uruguay. And I saw 3 or 4 times over the next few days the national team's Twitter would tweet something about drawing the 5th ranked Uruguay, even though one, that wasn't the 5th ranked Uruguay, none of their stars were there, and secondly, they didn't care. But it's like the entire match, they never wanted to play, and so I was a little disappointed when we managed to score, because that allowed Greg to say, oh, it was a hard-fought match, but we still scored, we still got a result. So I was worryingly a little happy when we didn't do that against Canada and we actually got the result we deserved, which was a hard loss. Because I saw, I can't remember who it was, but somebody tweeted it when it was still 1-0 toward the end of the game, saying that I really hope we don't get some like weird fluky goal at the end of this and end up getting a result, because we all know Greg would be like, oh, it was a hard-fought game, but we came back, we got a result. I'm really proud of, the fight and everything. And he would say all these things about how proud he is of the team, even though they were terrible. And so the fact that I'm a little bit happy that we lost is a really weird place to be. And I've seen this again on Twitter. And I'm not alone. And I think that is very troubling, because there's already this little bit of worry about the apathy and the lack of care from the fans about the national team, but that lack of caring is almost turning into cheering against our favorite team. And part of it is because we know that the players that are there aren't going to bring us where we need to go. But the problem is that the apathy thing, which certainly is going on with the fans, is starting to go on with the Federation as well. And I believe that the Federation is kind of not caring about what the fans think. And if you are on Twitter and you're involved in the whole national team Twitter, it's very intense. Like if you just drop in for a day, I see a lot of times people describe it as toxic. And if you come in from the outside and you spend a day or two there and you don't really get to know what's going on, you'll basically get a snapshot of a conversation. Because tend to be conversation that's thread over several days. So you get a snapshot of a conversation and it'll appear a bit toxic. And I
Yeah.
think that the whole federation is because all of soccer, U.S. soccer Twitter has been hounding for 2 years the federation and the men's national team to get better, and they haven't.
And
And
then
I
you
think
throw in the women's national team and the pay thing and like
yeah, a
all of
whole
this.
bunch of crap. But the fact is, I think part of all of that intensity, it has sort of just become something the federation just doesn't care about. They don't care what the fans think anymore because the fans have thought the same thing for 2 years. They voiced that very loudly for 2 years. And I think the federation has just sort of built up this sort of calloused skin to it. And this is very troubling. And I really don't know how, both as a fan base and as as a federation, we move on from here. Because the fans either are absolutely livid or just don't care.
Yeah.
Neither of which are going to sell jerseys, neither of which are really going to sell out stadiums or support the team. And the federation doesn't care. And somebody's going to have to start caring, otherwise this team is going to sink into just basically not even existing. And we're on the brink of a golden generation. And we're on a very, very steep downward trend with fan support and with a federation and everything. And it's a little concerning because
It's a lot concerning. I mean, when you look at the pool of players we have that are under 23 years old, they're playing at the biggest clubs in Europe. They're doing like all of these things that we have never, ever, ever had before.
It's very exciting, and I think people are sort of, I don't know that they're forgetting it, but the national, like I think they're starting to lose faith that the federation and the senior team are ever really going to care about them. And I think most of them are dual nats, which if you're on the U.S. soccer Twitter, dual nats come up constantly, and everybody's always complaining about U.S. soccer not doing enough to keep and to find dual nats, and
yeah, one of the big I guess success stories for the past few months was Berhalter's handling of Serginho Dest being a dual national.
That may not even come out,
and that's
which is, again, that's not going to be the federation's fault.
Yeah,
I'm going to put that on record.
Yeah, that's like the one I think good thing that has happened this year is that we did everything right with Serginho. We did everything right. He went to the U20 World Cup. He had a great U20 World Cup. Like we did everything
Greg
right.
is keeping in contact with him.
Like
I want to say everything right because I don't know if he's staying in contact with Serge. But I'm assuming that if he is still in contact with Serginho, just keeping tabs, keeping an open line of conversation.
Assuming he hasn't already issued a decision that he just hasn't made public yet either.
Which, I mean, he still, a few days ago posted hearts on the Conrad's post, so we're still good.
He does still have U.S. in his bio.
He's still wearing a U.S. kit in his profile picture. I do not stalk Serginho on Instagram, don't worry.
Yeah, so, I mean, to say... I mean, I guess like Serginho is like the one bright spot.
Yeah, and the thing is, I say I don't know how we fix the whole apathy thing. Now I don't know how we fix the federation's apathy toward fans. That one, that's going to be tough without cleaning house, and I don't know how we clean house because it's a whole big swamp of trouble. Now, calling up some of our young U20 players. That'll gain interest from the fans. The problem is I don't see that happening. So we're left with the solution to the apathy problem is something that we're not going to get.
Yep.
So,
and that's Berhalter out.
Well, that's the other one, which that would be flashy. The problem is, who do we put in then?
Mm-hmm.
Because again, Tab Ramos wasn't even interviewed, and I mean,
I saw something.
Let's not claim that there were ever really interviews.
I saw something very disturbing about that on Twitter, and I don't know if it's true or not, so I'm not going to share it, but it was very concerning, and I really hope it's not true, but I wouldn't be surprised if it is.
Yeah, well, I'll kind of hint at what it is. But Tab was never interviewed, and basically, the consensus is that it's because Jay Berhalter always wanted his brother, and there was never going to be another manager. So the whole coach search that took a year wasn't a search. It was just
waiting for Columbus.
Try to pretend we're searching for a coach, but we're always going to hire Greg. And the fact that Tab Ramos never even came up tells me that even if we, by some miracle, are able to push Greg out, that Tab isn't going to be the guy that gets the chance to manage the team, even though I think he should. I mean, he's been getting, solid results at the U20 level for, last 3 or 4 cycles.
Yeah. I mean, so I guess at the end of this, we just have to kind of wait and see what happens. I mean,
I'll give Greg basically, I think maybe about 2-3 weeks until the next roster comes out, and that's sort of now. I've already said I want him out, which I still do, but I think Greg's last chance is going to be the roster release for November, and if it's anything really similar, he needs to have at least one flashy player on that roster.
One flashy player and a couple exemptions.
Yeah, I mean, you need to keep Will, Trav, and Jazzy Zardes off the team. And
Christian Roldan off the team.
Roldan and Lovitz off and Baird. And you need to have some flashy players. You need to put on a Ledesma, which Ledesma had a goal and 2 assists in 45 minutes with the U23s. The same time yesterday as the senior team was playing. So, to me, that's good enough.
Yeah.
Right? He's not going to play for the senior team at PSV yet. But to me, goal and 2 assists with the U23s, okay.
In 45 minutes.
You can play for our senior team. You can get
especially when we're not getting results. Like, it's not like we're out here dominating all the time.
Like
we're failing.
Yeah, we're not France. We're not England. We're losing.
We're not even Spain.
Time to try something new.
Yeah. And then we briefly mentioned this before. I don't want to go jumping off a cliff here, but World Cup qualifying starts in 10.5 months. I don't want to start saying and start worrying about it in a sense of, oh my God, what if we don't qualify? But it is also hard, very, very hard for those what ifs not to start coming into your head. It was hard in September when we lost 3-0 to Mexico and we drew a Uruguay team that didn't want to play. It is very, very, very hard now that we have lost 2-0 to Canada. We have to play away matches in qualifying. If we cannot win away matches in qualifying, we will not be going.
I mean, because we're not going to beat Mexico at home. I don't really think we'll beat Costa Rica at home.
We've already lost to Canada away.
So
what happened?
It's like we'll see how we do against Canada at home. But yeah, I mean, we're going to have to get a lot better if we truly want to say we expect to be in the World Cup. But I don't want to get too hysterical over that just yet.
I think it's too like I said, World Cup qualifying starts in 10.5 months. It's not like these matches are qualifiers.
They are sort of for some teams.
For some teams,
not for us. Though.
Yeah. But it does start to raise some questions, and I don't think we should ignore those questions. But I also don't think we need to jump off the cliff being like, oh my God, we're not going to qualify. I don't think we're there yet. But we're rapidly running out of time to start turning things around.
I don't know that we'll be able to say the same thing in a month.
Yeah. We are rapidly running out of time. 10.5 months is not a long time, especially after November. We will not have most of our players again until March.
Yeah. So
March.
Long time.
Yeah. So yeah, it's dark days ahead. Dark days at the present.
Now let's not end on dark days. So
U23s did win 6-1.
Yes. So just a very, very short, quick thing. The U17 World Cup is going to be going on here 1 or 2 weeks. I can't remember exactly when the date is.
Fox is even airing it too.
It's going to be on Fox. Well, I think it's Fox Sports 1, Fox Sports 2. But definitely make an effort to watch those games. And be excited about those players. There's a few that are very, very good. You have someone like Gio Reyna,
Ricardo
Kobe
Pepe.
Hernandez Foster, okay, George Bello, Ricardo Pepe, Gianluca Buzio, Griffin Yao, what's his first name? KO. I can't remember his first name. I'm sorry. I just started following you on Instagram today. Don't hate me. But we have a lot of young, very promising players. And a lot of players that are going to Europe. I mean, KO is rumored to be going to several different European clubs. In fact, he left DC United's academy because he's refusing to sign a homegrown contract with them because he wants to move to Europe as soon as he's age eligible. Kobe Hernandez Foster's in the same situation. He's going to go straight to Europe. Gio Reyna is already there. He has the Portuguese passport. He has a European passport, so he can go early. So we have a lot of young players that are going to Europe. So be excited about them, and make an effort to watch them.
Encourage them. Tweet at them.
It'll be better.
Insta comment them. Tell them we love them. The
post
usual
all
things.
The American flags.
All the American flags. American flags for everybody.
Most of them are dual nats. Don't want to lose them.
Yeah. Show them we love them. Support them. Like the things that we should be doing anyway. Like regardless.
Yeah, but don't let your apathy, your anger, your hate toward the men's national team affect these young players. They have tremendous futures, and I, for one, am very excited about it. I'm more excited about the U17 World Cup than I was for the Gold Cup, and I was more excited for the U20 World Cup than I was about the Gold Cup.
Yeah.
I'm just, in general, more excited about our youth tournaments than our senior tournaments, and I'm very excited about this next U20 cycle. We are so deep in so many positions. And to think we're going to have a guy like Gio Reyna, who's probably going to have a year or two of first-team football in Champions League, playing potentially for our U20 is something very exciting. So I encourage you to look on the bright side. We have a lot of young talent. And remember to keep an eye on like Richie Ledesma. He's playing a lot for PSV, young PSV. So is Loster.
Alex
Mendez is playing
for Young Ajax.
Yuli, as we mentioned, his father said he's back healthy, so he'll be playing, I believe, Saturday for Wolfsburg U19.
Gio with Dortmund.
Gio won't be playing for a little bit because he's with the U17 World Cup squad. I also forgot Danny Leyva. Can't believe I forgot him. He is Tyler Adams' backup for the future, number 6. Don't want to forget his name for the U17 World Cup. But yeah, just if nothing else, at least follow some of our young players. If you don't already follow, if you have a Twitter, I'm going to give out a shout out to one of my favorite follows. Is ChuckMe92Soccer. I do not know his @ off the top of my head. I will tag him in the tweet. But do shoot him a follow. He gives you way more names than you'll ever remember. But if there is a player who is young, who has an ounce of American blood, he knows about them, and he will tell you when they're playing and how they're playing. So definitely follow him. But I encourage you to watch the youth. They're more exciting and, quite frankly, easier to cheer for because they're not managed by a moron.
They're just better. They're just better. Like there are a lot of our U20s, definitely our U23s, hell, even some of the U17s that are right now, I think, better than some of our senior team players.
I would say a fair number.
Yeah. So
definitely Gio Reyna is better than Corey Bayard, but so is Julianez and Tim Weah and probably even Conrad at this point.
Yeah, so everybody's
better. But anyway, we're already getting pretty long here, so
listen to this at 1.5. It's a little late for that now, but
yeah, you're gonna want to watch this faster, which we probably we'll make sure to tell you that at the beginning, not after you've listened to the whole thing. Yeah. But thanks for listening to our second episode. Hopefully, we'll get more consistent with releasing them. I would like to do a U17 preview. We kind of did a little 5-minute one here, a little bit more in depth, about some of the players to watch.
Yeah, go over.
But I'm not going to promise anything. We kind of said we were going to do a thing about the pay gap about 3 months ago. We never did that.
To be fair, that turned out to be a lot more complicated than we expected.
And we can find no information about, like, it's actually, like, hard evidence and, like, it's not basically, here is our opinion and this is why our opinion is right type of journalism, but rather the journalism that tells you the fact and lets you form your own opinion. Everybody has an agenda when it comes to this for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So we're not going to be doing that if you didn't
figure that out
by the 3 months of not doing it. But we will hopefully get more involved with this. And
hopefully we'll have some, like, happy episodes at some point.
Yeah, hopefully after I hate to tell you this. If you don't know about the U17 World Cup, we're kind of in the group of death. I hate to tell you because I just told you we're not going to end on something bad, which that's kind of bad. But I
believe we can get out of it.
So we are going to get out of the group of death. It's going to feel like the 2014 World Cup when we get out of the group of death with Portugal. We send Ronaldo home. And it's going to feel like that.
Still one of the highlights of my time as a U.S. men's national team fan.
In the round of 16, because we are going to make it to the knockout rounds. Hopefully, in the knockout rounds, we will not need a Tim Howard-esque performance because we will dominate. But yes, follow your youth teams. They're much easier to like right now.
Much, much easier to like. Yeah, so we'll go sign off after an hour and a half of this.
A little over, oh dear.
But, yeah. To the future! Alright, good night. Thanks for hanging with us. This is the For the CREST podcast, signing off, finally.
Sayonara.
Bye-bye!
Good cut.